Close your eyes and imagine a Saturday morning. No alarm, no notifications, just the sound of a socket wrench echoing through a quiet garage while the rest of the neighborhood is still asleep. The person holding that wrench hasn't slept in the past 6 years, not because they can't, but because something is waiting for them. A half-disassembled 1969 Chevelle sits under a single hanging bulb, patient and rusting, looking like it belongs in a junkyard. But the person crouched beside it? They're smiling. That image right there is a window into one of the most psychologically rich personality types walking the planet today. Classic car restoration looks like a hobby from the outside, a weekend project, maybe an expensive one. But spend 5 minutes talking to someone genuinely deep in a restoration, and the language shifts entirely. They don't say they're fixing a car, they say they're saving it. They say it deserves better. They talk about the machine like it has feelings, like it has dignity worth restoring alongside the chrome. What's actually happening inside those garages goes far beyond mechanical repair. It's one of the most psychologically complex pursuits a modern human being can take on, and the people drawn to it share traits that science finds genuinely fascinating. Psychologists who study hobbyist behavior have noticed something consistent about serious restorers. They are almost universally high in a trait called conscientiousness, but not the boring checkbox kind. This is conscientiousness fused with something rarer, tolerance for ambiguity. Restorers don't just follow instructions, they operate in a world where the instructions don't exist anymore, where parts haven't been manufactured in 40 years, where the answer to every problem has to be invented from scratch. That combination, meticulous attention to detail plus comfort with deep uncertainty, is genuinely uncommon. Most detail-oriented people hate uncertainty. Most people comfortable with ambiguity avoid detailed work. Restorers thrive precisely where those two worlds collide, and that tells you something important about how their minds are built. There's a reason restorers describe their garage time as sacred. It isn't just preference or habit. Neuroscience and psychology both point to what's happening in the brain during deep mechanical work. The challenge is complex enough to demand full cognitive engagement, but physical enough to keep the body anchored in the present. What results is a state researchers call flow, a complete merging of action and awareness, where self-consciousness dissolves and time stops mattering. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi devoted his career to understanding this state, and his conclusion was stark. People experience their deepest happiness not during rest, but during difficult, absorbing work. Classic car restoration is practically engineered to produce flow. The problems are never simple. The skills required keep expanding, and the feedback, that moment when an engine turns over after weeks of silence, is immediate, visceral, and unforgettable. But here's where it gets genuinely moving. For a significant number of restorers, the car they choose is never random. A son restores the same make and model his late father drove to work every morning for 30 years. A woman rebuilding a 1972 Ford Bronco is quietly processing a divorce, finding in the project a version of herself that doesn't need anyone's permission to move forward. The garage becomes a place where emotions too large for conversation get channeled into something productive and real. Psychologists who study object attachment describe this process as externalized emotional work, using a physical task to process internal experience that would otherwise remain stuck. The car absorbs what the person cannot yet say out loud, and over months of labor, something in both of them gets restored. Ask a restorer why they chose the era they did, and listen carefully to the answer. Almost always, there's autobiography buried in it. The decade their parents were young, the car their older brother drove in high school, the model that appeared in the first movie that ever made them cry. Nostalgia, it turns out, isn't just sentiment. Research by psychologist Konstantin Sedekides shows that nostalgia actively increases self-continuity, the sense that you are the same person across time, that your life has coherence and meaning. In an era of relentless change where identity feels fragile and cultural anchors keep shifting, restoring a vehicle from a fixed point in history is a way of saying, "This existed, it mattered, and so do I." The car becomes proof of continuity in a world that forgot how to hold still. Control is not a small thing. Modern life strips it away in 100 invisible ways every single day. Algorithms decide what you see. Markets decide what your work is worth. Institutions make decisions that reshape your life without asking. And then you walk into your garage, close the door, and every single choice belongs entirely to you. Which parts to source, whether to keep it factory original or build something that never existed, what color it becomes, what it sounds like when it runs. That totality of ownership over every detail, every outcome, produces something psychologists call a strong internal locus of control, and research consistently links it to lower anxiety, higher resilience, and a more stable sense of self. The garage isn't an escape from the world, it's a correction to it. Spend time in a serious restoration community and you'll notice something sociologists find remarkable. These groups operate by entirely different status rules than mainstream society. Your job title means nothing here. Your salary is irrelevant. What earns respect is whether you can diagnose a problem no one else could solve, whether your metalwork is clean, whether you helped a stranger source a part at midnight from across the country just because you knew where to look. The knowledge gets passed down like folklore, older restorers mentoring younger ones, not because anyone asked them to, but because that's simply what the culture demands. In a world where genuine mentorship is increasingly rare and community increasingly shallow, these garages quietly produce something sociologists call communities of practice, groups held together not by geography or algorithm, but by shared skill, shared language, and genuine mutual investment in each other's growth. Here's a thought that restorers rarely voice but seem to feel deeply. When you bring a car back from the edge of oblivion, something that was weeks away from being crushed, that no one believed in anymore, you have performed an act of rescue that will outlast you. That vehicle may run for another 60 years. It may pass through hands you'll never know. It may sit in a collection somewhere long after you're gone and make a stranger stop and stare and feel something they can't name. Psychologists call the drive to create things that outlast us generativity, and Erik Erikson identified it as one of the central developmental needs of adult life. Restoration answers that need in the most concrete way imaginable. You held something broken in your hands. You refused to let it disappear, and now it will exist in the world longer than you will. Every future owner, every admiring stranger, every child pressing their face against the glass at a car show, they are all, in some way, a continuation of your effort. That is not a small thing to do with your time. What the psychology of classic car restoration ultimately reveals isn't about cars at all. It's about what human beings need to feel whole. We need to make things with our hands. We need problems difficult enough to demand everything we have. We need places where our effort is the only currency that counts. We need connection to the past so the present feels less unmoored. We need proof, physical, tangible, undeniable proof that we were here and that we built something worth keeping. The people in those garages figured that out, not through therapy or philosophy, but through a socket wrench and a stubborn refusal to let something beautiful disappear. Next time you see a restored classic gleaming under the sun at a car show, don't just see the paint and chrome, see the thousands of hours of human devotion underneath it. See the grief processed, the identity reclaimed, the purpose rebuilt. That car didn't just get restored. So did the person who restored it. In a world moving faster than most can process, that might be the most quietly radical act a person can choose.